Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier One. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving with your friends and family. I did. Got to see everyone and eat some good food and drink some good spirits. Overall, very, very good time. So, what do I have on the plate for this week? Well, uh, it's two topics that kind of taper into one another. So I'm gonna start with what I'm calling a problem, even though some people might disagree with me as this being a problem, and I don't want to overemphasize that word. I'm not necessarily saying that it's a huge deal, but it's just something that I've spoken about on the show before, many episodes ago. But it's something that I'm seeing on Gab mostly over the last few days, and I've seen this crop up on more than one occasion. So I thought I should maybe address it again. It'd be an interesting topic to kind of lead into some other things that I've been thinking about. So with that, the other day I saw some posts over on Gab, and today there was another series of posts from a different poster. And that's kind of what keyed me in on all of this. And someone was saying, kind of complaining about the overall environment on Gab. And one of the threads was kind of comparing Gab to Twitter, and how Twitter had a much more laid back, kind of accepting feel to it than Gab did. Um, and that's valid because admittedly Gab is not for everyone. It's a harsh place with some rather acidic takes on current events. So um, people not feeling welcome or comfortable there is understandable. I certainly can see that. But I think there's plenty of room for people who don't like that kind of tone or that kind of air about the place. And you can have a completely harmless experience over there and find it warming and inviting. I've seen people say that, and it's all about which circles you run in, which people you associate with, posters you associate with on Gab, and those kind of things, which is, kind of like life in general. But I see this person's point, in that some of those circles and some of the most popular posters on the platform, it can be exhausting to try and keep pace with the perception of what you should or should not be to be considered, cool enough, I guess, for the in crowd over there, the traditional uh, promoters, traditionalism, this kind of thing, and what it takes to be seen as sort of keyed in and having your stuff squared away and doing things right. And this poster made the point that they felt like, they couldn't even post a joke on the pages because some jackass would attack them for, not being hard enough and focused on the real problems and blaming the right people and all of these kinds of things. And I can easily see how someone, would feel that way. They could, take it that way. I've never really been personally called out for that or attacked for that, so for me, it's not really an issue. But I have seen people do that, and so I can certainly imagine that someone who's been sort of taken to task, I guess you could say, for posting a joke or something by some clown. I could easily see how they would get have that feeling, and which immediately on this guy's post, he was taken to task by more than a few people for just not accepting things and just sucking it up. That's the way it is. This is just how it is over here on, in Gab. That's why it's great. You're just going to have to, just have to roll with it, which is kind of proving the point that he was making. And like I said, I agree with him, by the way. I think our side probably takes itself far too seriously, and at times that can lead to some very cringy behavior and statements. It leads to a lot of blustery and chest pumping statements that from some people come across as just complete buffoonery. Everyone thinks they have to maintain an edge at all times, and they can't let their war face down, even for a second to crack a joke because it might make them look weak or vulnerable or whatever, and that's idiocy. It's just eye rolling and head shakingly stupid. Okay, just from the standpoint of, or if you're projecting to try to appear to be a badass, um, I've had the fortune to know quite a few men who've been in very dangerous and dark situations, and I talk to them as much as I can, and I learn from them as much as I can, what they can or will teach me. And one of the things that I find to be almost universal is they all have a sense of humor. Okay, and it can be rather dark, but it's always just below the surface, and they will laugh and make jokes about things that the average person would may even be taken aback by. And I think that's probably why I get along with them so well, even though I've not been in danger at any level like that they have been. But I had that sense of humor long before I started meeting people like that. I don't know why, but it's there. That's just how I see the world. And so this idea that you have to be this hard faced, teeth grinding badass, just in and of itself is wrong. And not to mention that you can't maintain that level of focus and seriousness all the time. It just wears you down and it erodes you in so many areas of your life. If you try to live like that, you're putting people off, and that's why I'm completely dismissive of people like that. If someone who makes those kinds of statements online of all places, I have very little patience for. Um, we all know that they're not that hard. They are not that focused and single minded, and you know that they can't tell a joke. They do that, and then they try to take other people to task for telling a joke. That's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Like I said, we know that that's not how they are in their life, and in a lot of ways, it's probably them projecting that onto other people because they know that they can't live up to their own standard. But at any rate, that leads me to a different point, and let's kind of go back to our Musashi for a minute when he says, "Know the way broadly." In other words, apply the way in all facets of your life. And that does not mean that you are a hard ass about everything. That's not what that means. It means that you have focus and meaning and efficiency, purpose to all the things that you do. All things with purpose, none without. It means that you learn lessons from all things that you are doing. Lessons that are along the path of the way. And let me amplify something here. When he says the way, it's usually seen as being something martial in nature because Musashi was a samurai, he was a warrior. So everyone just assumes that he's speaking about, the way of the warrior, but that's not really what he's talking about. It's a warrior mindset, no doubt. It's a focus and attention that a warrior would have or should have, but the way can be anything. You can be a person who walks the way of a chef, for example, or the way of a carpenter. Anything, whatever vocation or purpose that your life leads you to, is the way. And knowing the way broadly, you see that purpose in all that you do, even in seemingly unrelated things. Lessons that we learn in one place will apply to another, which is to say that while you may be doing something innocuous, or maybe even something that looks to be entirely frivolous, it does not mean that you are not learning or that you are wasting your time. So when someone is doing something that you might, as your internet buffoon, might look at and say, well, that's just a waste of time. I wouldn't be doing that. You need to be out sharpening your hatchet or whatever. That just tells me that you don't know enough to know that you're wrong and foolish, and you have no understanding of completeness and fullness. And this is where we move into the other point of the show today, and it's a matter of Zen, but it is also a matter of supporting the culture and craftsmanship that we might call traditional. Okay, traditionalism, I guess you would say. A step along the way is that of knowing yourself and having what I would call leadership over yourself. I think Musashi called it mastery, but I don't know, that has certain connotations, I guess, for me. But at any rate, I think leadership is probably a term that we could use a little bit more of. So, but in order to do that, you have to follow yourself before you can lead yourself. Because to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower. So, what do I mean by that? Well, in weapons training, you will often hear the term muscle memory used, and it's not exactly a great term, but the meaning of it is really perfect. It means training something until it is conditioned, and when it is conditioned, it then becomes unconscious and effortless. And our minds do not have to think. The body simply responds to senses or stimulus, and it performs the task. And this is the essence of Zen. Now, expand this into the idea of leading a small team of people. Um, is it not true that when a group of people have worked together and they've performed together for a long enough time that the leader doesn't have to give out directions for things to be done, right? The leader can think about the problems and simply state the desired solution, and the team will execute it. So when I talk about following yourself so that will later transform into leading yourself, this is where we're trying to get to. A state that the body and the mind are almost separate, with the body acting and the mind having to waste no effort on thinking about the different process or different steps of the actions. There's not having to micromanage the body doing things. It just does it. The mind sees the outcome and the body works to make that happen. And that is a process. That is something that you have to do. And that's the followership part, is you have to create some discipline in yourself with training or with certain actions or whatnot, to get to that point where you are you can do things in an unthinking manner. It's a very difficult place to get to across all things in life. Of course, that's kind of that whole essence of the Buddhist or the Zen religion. Is they're talking about, can we get to this place, and that it's sort of kind of a state of perfection, which you can't achieve perfection. So I have no illusions of ever achieving that in terms of everything that I do. However, I try to get to that place on some things, right? So that's the best that we can do. And here's where some people can confuse states of mind. So let me say this: we're not talking about the condition of our mind and body that we would maybe call daydreaming. That is something that can happen, of course, because it's kind of a similar place, but the end state, or the state of being at the time, is different. Daydreaming would be where you might be doing some small task, and your hands or whatnot work the task while you're thinking about some things 1,000 miles away, and you are focused on your mind roaming and doing other things. What I'm talking about is similar, except that you're not thinking of other things. You are in a state of unfocus. Okay, you're not roaming 1,000 miles away, but you're also not focused on the task at hand that you're doing. You have achieved this state of unthinking, and getting into the state has benefits, and we could talk about that at another time. But essentially what you're trying to do is achieve a place or a state that you are relieved of anxiety, you are relieved of fear, you are absent of these things that weigh heavily upon you and prevent you from clearly acting. And in fact, the Zen would say that many times no action is better than action, that nature will has a way of fixing itself, and if you just stop and do nothing, that the problem will go away. I don't know that I necessarily buy into all of that, but I think it certainly has benefits many times to sit and do nothing and watch and wait and learn. So that is something that we want to at least embrace in part. Now this kind of leads into the last part that I wanted to talk about today. Getting into this state, something you can do to try to learn this or try to achieve this is what I would call a ritual purpose. And what I'm talking about is an act or a process that is generally looked at as common, but it is undertaken with a reverence and a devotion to the process, which elevates it above other things that you might do in the day. And not only does it elevate it in an aesthetic level, but from a mental and spiritual level as well. And a good example of this, I think, is the Japanese tea ceremony. If you've never seen one of these, go out on YouTube and watch some of the videos that are out there. There's a bunch, and not only are they beautiful, they are beautiful. They're very calming and relaxing, and that's the point that I'm wanting to emphasize here. On YouTube there are tens of thousands of videos that are called ASMR, and forgive me, I'm not going to go look up what ASMR stands for. It's something about brain waves and patterns that result from visual and audio stimulation, but it's basically a technical, long way of saying that watching and hearing slow and deliberate actions can induce a state of calmness in the brain, which is that Zen thing that we were talking about there. Watching them can induce the calmness and the unfocus, but performing them most definitely will induce this the more you do these things. By performing these common tasks with ritual and purpose, we can get to that state and achieve this relaxation and clearing of the mind. For me, it is the act of shaving my face. Okay, this is what I do to kind of calm myself and detach myself from the world for a little bit. It's kind of a way to reset and to take a time out. I shave with a straight razor, which means, as you can imagine, this act requires focus and deliberate purpose to what I am doing. So it is a very, very effective way of clearing your mind of any other problems and thoughts. And I focus purely on the effort or the art of it. It is definitely an art, trust me. So find yourself something like this and pour yourself into it. And it could be something like, smoking a pipe or making a mixed drink of some sort, something for yourself, sitting down to drink that drink in a special place, just something that has process and it takes time. And that's the important element to this because it requires us to slow down and kind of step away from the world for a little bit and take this slow and rhythmic, steps. Our breathing should be slow and rhythmic during the act so it clears your mind of all these other things except what you are working on. And trust me on this, it is wonderful and you will appreciate the outcome. What you will tend to find is that the more you do this, the better the experience will become, but also the better the results will be. We often talk about, process over product, and by that we mean, focusing on the process and making the process perfect, and that will result in a perfect product. And there is a sublimeness to this, I assure you, and it's not just some kind of, management catchword or whatnot, process over product. But yeah, it is true in this sense that the more you focus on the acts and the various steps in what you're doing, the better off, the better the outcome will be. Now, I mentioned something about craftsmanship and traditional things. Well, what did I mean by that? Well, let me go back to shaving as an example. When I am shaving with a straight razor, I want that razor to be high quality steel so that it will maintain an edge. I want the brush to be made out of badger fur so that it creates a high volume of shaving cream or shaving soap. I want the water to be the right temperature. I want the shaving cream to be high quality so that it's just right and it does what it's supposed to do, and so on and so on. I think you get that right now. But each individual element or component or ingredient in your process should be of a higher quality. Now, I didn't say expensive, by the way. I just said quality. I use a shaving soap that is handmade by someone that I know. I don't pay anything for it, but I know that the materials are pure and it doesn't have any weird chemicals in it. So the quality is very high, and that's what we're after here. And why is that? Well, it elevates the whole thing. We use the highest quality we can get, and it elevates each individual element, and that elevates the overall experience to its highest point. It means that you're not distracted because something didn't perform like you were expecting, or it didn't taste right, or it looked right, or what have you. Whatever task you're working on here or experience that you are trying to have, each component. Sorry about that. That's the that was the weekly flyby by the Air National Guard. They buzz down through the valley about once a week. So unfortunately, during the show today. But any rate, the experience that you are trying to have will have components that need to do their jobs correctly, so that the harmony of the whole is not upset. Like the harmony of the show today was upset by the F-15. But when we're seeking out these higher quality items, naturally we're going to be gravitating to handcrafted or bespoke sources, and that supports that traditional craftsmanship and producers that we are trying to promote. These are the things that we're trying to keep alive and keep going. These processes, these traditional products and things. So what I'm recommending is that regardless of your current station in life, whatever your financial or whatnot position might be right now, you can find something, identify one thing, one process or task or something in your day-to-day life that you can elevate and kind of transform into a ritual purpose. Spend some time and spend a little money to get the best quality, items for that process that you can. Set aside a spot or make time, even if it's just once a week, to do this thing, perform this task, and do it with slow and purposeful actions. And it will clear your mind and it will relax you, and you will be all the better for the experience. And put these fools who think things like this are a waste of time to shame. They are all the more ignorant for not having this in their life. With that is all I have for today. So come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.